Welcome back to Dulades After Dark, where we delve into the most perplexing and twisted tales of true crime. I'm Orion.
And I'm Ducky. Tonight, we unravel a case so entangled with irony and coincidence that it left seasoned investigators scratching their heads. This is the story of Ronald Opus.
Our tale begins on March 23rd, 1994. A body was discovered on the sidewalk beneath a 10-story building. The deceased was identified as 39-year-old Ronald Opus. At first glance, it appeared to be a straightforward suicide. A note was found in his pocket expressing despondency.
However, the autopsy revealed a shocking twist. Ronald didn't die from the fall. He was sustained a fatal gunshot wound to the head during his descent. This revelation transformed a presumed suicide to a complex homicide investigation.
Right. Investigators traced the trajectory of the shotgun blast to a ninth-floor apartment. Inside, they found an elderly couple. The husband admitted to handling a loaded shotgun during a heated argument with his wife. He claimed he never intended to fire the weapon. It discharged accidentally when he was gesturing emphatically.
And with that, the plot thickens when the couple revealed a history of domestic disputes. The husband had a habit of brandishing unloaded firearms to intimidate his wife. Unbeknownst to him, their son had recently loaded the shotgun, hoping his mother would use it in self-defense.
Further investigation uncovered that their son was none other than Ronald Opus. Overwhelmed by financial troubles and feeling neglected by his parents, Ronald had decided to end his life. He was planning to jump from the building's roof.
Unbeknownst to Ronald, a safety net had been installed on the 8th floor for window watchers, which would have thwarted his suicide attempt. Tragically, as he passed the 9th floor, his father's unintended gunshot struck him, resulting in his death.
This case presented an unprecedented legal conundrum. The father's intent was not to kill, yet his actions directly led to his son's death. After thorough deliberation, the authorities concluded that Ronald's death was a homicide, albeit a convoluted one. Ducky, tell me a little bit about your thoughts on this one. It seems a little wild.
This is a extremely weird and just perplexing case as it is, right? Like, you have someone who was going to try to take his life, but it wouldn't have been successful, just for him to get shot by a shotgun that he loaded trying to kill someone else, but ended up killing him. It's a very odd case, and I think it very, like, if I was the judge in the situation, I'd have absolutely no idea what to do, because the whole thing with the law is intent, right? If you have the intent to kill someone and you plan it, then it's first degree murder. If you had intent to kill him but didn't plan it, that's second degree. If you did neither but you still killed someone, that's third degree / manslaughter, right? So, like, the father didn't plan on killing his son, but also didn't know the weapon was loaded, but was pointing it at his wife. I don't know. Well, what are your thoughts? Because it's hard for me to wrap my head around this case.
It's just as hard for me to wrap my head around it, to be completely honest. Here we are in a situation where this man has constant disputes with his wife, right? They're constantly going at it. There's domestic violence, there's domestic abuse, there's all types of just discourse between this man and his wife. And then the son had, loaded the weapon intending for the mother to use it to defend herself against the father, who was domestically abusive, but didn't bother to tell the mother that it was loaded. So the father and the mother, neither one of them knew the weapon was loaded. So as the father is brandishing around what he assumes is an unloaded weapon, he accidentally triggers a release of projectiles, which go through the door and unintentionally kill his kid. So, I mean, technically, I guess you could say it's murder, but it's not at the same time. We're looking at, like, manslaughter, maybe, but it's very ambiguous. I know we don't have a lot of heavy factoids in this case. It's just a very basic informational, like, this is what happened, but there's not a lot of factoids to really go on. So looking at it from that point of view and trying to understand what a judge and a jury might have been thinking while presiding over this case or viewing this case or deliberating on this case, I can't imagine the kind of confusion that would be involved when you say, okay, so how do we process this because this was clearly unintentional, but at the same time, that weapon was being brandished against a separate person with intent to threaten or alarm. So in that case, you got harassment in the first against the wife, right?
Exactly. And this kind of sets a weird something that's been like unprecedented on our channel, right? So we've always looked for cases that are either like not well documented or there's like room to kind of interpret things. This one we have all the cases, like all the facts for the case, right? Like we know what happened. It's just really who should we put the blame on? Should we put the blame on, Ronald for loading the weapon and he was going to end up killing himself anyway, except for it wouldn't have been successful, or his father for, brandishing a loaded weapon at his wife? It's just a really weird spot kind of a weird case for the 90s, honestly. Like we see all these like crazy cases like the JFK assassination, John Benet Ramsey, like it's just all these crazy cases. And then there was just Ronald Opus, who had like 40 different factors. And really, it's just who should we put the legal blame on at the end of the day?
Right. And thinking about that, I begin to wonder, in a situation like that, if I was trying it or if I was hearing the case as a member of the jury, I wouldn't know what direction to go with it. Because obviously there needed to be some charges levied against the father for the domestic abuse and the threatening and the intent to harm. But at the same time, he preferred to brandish his weapon unloaded. Wasn't aware that it was loaded because it was loaded previously by the son, who had clearly suicidal tendencies. And regardless of where his mental state was at, he still loaded the weapon, but he's dead. So you cannot put the blame for his own death on him. You can't charge him. He's dead.
Yeah, and it's a really, I guess, like, it's not even open-ended, but it's a closed case, right? The father's already been charged, but it's kind of open in the sense of like, I don't really know what to say. It's kind of hard to put my thoughts into words here.
I can understand that completely. It's because the case is so concise, it's very difficult to put into words having an opinion about this case. Because you could go in a million different directions. It's so concise. Everything is right there. There was no need for an investigation because everything was so clear cut. So there's not even really anything to speculate on. There's just, what the hell just happened here?
Imagine being like the investigators going up and it's just one thing. It's like, this makes sense. He was, we found him on the sidewalk. He killed himself. Oh, wait, but he didn't because, he was shot. It's just, I feel like the only real innocent one here is the wife / mother in this entire situation.
I am inclined to agree there, especially being as it clearly states that she was a victim of domestic violence.
Yeah, arguably, she's just a victim in the case entirely. She's domestic violence, and on top of that, she just lost her son, and she gets threatened all the fucking time. Like I really don't know how to interpret this case, and I really don't know exactly the direction my brain is going. And I know I've kind of said that a few times, but it's just really the more you think about it and the more you look into the case, the weirder it gets and the worse it gets.
I can agree there 100%. And, you never see, you think about life around you, you never see these types of things, especially with something being so clear cut and concise. So, with that being said,
the more you like read into the case and the more you look at it, the less real it feels, kinda.
You make a good point there. I wonder if there's a reason it feels less real.
Now, dear listeners, before you start questioning everything you know about true crime, we do have a confession to make.
The story of Ronald Opus, entirely fictional.
Gotcha. April Fools. Welcome to our April Fool's special.
This tale was originally crafted by Don Harper Mills, the former president of the American Academy of Forensic Sciences, in 1987. He concocted it to illustrate the complexities and unforeseen twists in forensic investigations.
Yeah, and over the years, the story has taken a life of its own, often being mistaken for a real case. I know when I first heard it, I thought it was a real case, but it's a testament to how compelling storytelling can blur the lines between fact and fiction. Because at first glance, you're looking at it and you're like, oh shit, this could have happened. But then as time moves on, you realize, no, it didn't.
So, how did this fictional case manage to fool so many people? It all started with Mills telling the story at a forensic science conference. The audience was captivated, and as the tale spread beyond academic circles, people started repeating it as if it was a real case. With each retelling, details were adjusted slightly, giving it a more official feel.
Yeah, and by the early 2000s, the story was being shared on internet forums, crime blogs, and even cited as an example in legal discussion because it sounded plausible. Despite its outrageous twist, many believed it without question. Some newspapers even published it as a real case, further cementing its status as an urban legend.
The truth finally started coming out when fact checkers and legal experts, excuse me, this is just too funny. The truth finally started coming out when fact checkers and legal experts dug into the case and found absolutely zero official records of anyone ever being a person named Ronald Opus. No police reports and no news coverage from the supposed time of the incident. Eventually, Mills himself admitted that he made up the story, confirming that it was purely a thought experiment meant to demonstrate how complicated criminal investigations can become.
Yeah, and it is insane. But by then, it was too late. The myth had already spread worldwide, and even today, people still fall for it like you may or may not have just done. Some refuse to believe it's fake, insisting they once saw an official report or documentary about it. Just goes to show how easy misinformation can spread when a story is compelling enough.
We really hope that you enjoyed this little detour into the realm of urban legends. Remember, not everything you hear or read is true, especially if it's on the internet, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. Please check your facts. Always question, always verify.
That is a saying that we use a lot in my line of work. Trust but verify, right? Always go through, do your own research. But, right? So that will be all for this April Fool's special edition of Dulades After Dark. Remember, for all your questions, comments, concerns, bitches, moans, or gripes, you can reach out to us in the comment section or by our email. We read all of them in the event you want to suggest any shows like our Bonnie and Clyde episode. That was a listener that actually requested that. But yeah.
That's absolutely right. We love hearing from you guys, and we read and respond to every interaction as soon as we see them. We really do. We've gotten so few so far since we've been recording in October that anytime we see a notification pop up that we've gotten some type of interaction, we get hype. We are on opposite sides of the world right now while we record, and we get hype when we see your interactions. Please send your suggestions in for future subject matters of episodes, any further requests into further information about any case that we might do, whether it be a true crime, whether it be an urban legend, or whether it be a mystery. And keep your eye out for those because more switching it up is coming soon. We want to provide the content that you want to hear. But for now, we're going to close out by reminding you, I'm Orion.
And I'm Ducky.
And this has been
Dulades After Dark.